Are you ready to navigate the new way to work? Forbes Books presents Dare to Care in the Workplace with Kathleen Quinn Botaw. Here's Kathleen.
Welcome back to my conversation with recruiting legend Lou Adler. We've been discussing the work he does with companies in implementing his performance-based hiring system. He is also a prolific writer and the author of the bestseller, Hire with Your Head. Lou, a big part of the hiring process is the interview process, and you've often talked about the most important questions to ask. Can you share that?
Well, it's actually, I've changed it. But the question that I kind of remember, I was at some business group and they said, can you tell me the most important, some president of company, I had an opportunity from a recruiter standpoint to market my services by becoming a speaker and a resource at different business groups. And I didn't actually come up with that idea. My next door neighbor said, Lou, why don't you speak to my business group? And that was kind of, he got me in front of two different business groups, Young Presidents Organization and Vistage, and probably gave 400 or 500 presentations over a 10-year period and walked out with search assignments. So it was pretty amazing. Irrespective of that, one person, hey, I can only spend 15 minutes. What's the most important question? And I told them the most important question is ask the candidate to tell you the best thing they've ever accomplished in their whole life. The most best thing you've ever done in your whole life, and then spend 15 minutes peeling the onion. When'd you do it? Why'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you get assigned? What results did you have? And really spend time. But I actually think that's a good question, but a better question is what's the biggest team accomplishment you had in your whole life? How did you get on the team? Why did you get assigned to the team? Did you get any recognition for being on the team? Did your role change when you were on the team? Did anybody from that team ask you to be on another team? And just by finding out, well, both of those questions, they're the same questions, one's individual, one's team. Understanding how someone got assigned to the team tells you, why would you get assigned to a team? Nobody would assign you to an important team unless you were competent in something. So I understand how. So I don't even have to ask about your technical competence. I can just understand somebody else assigned you because of your technical competence. And then if some of those people on that team ask you to be on other teams, that's pretty indicative. You obviously have to be pretty good. So I don't have to know if I like you or not. I just have to know what other people liked you or not. So the idea is using deductive evidence to make the decision rather than how I feel about you as a person. How could I possibly make a judgment about a person, about 10 or 15 years of their work or 5 years of their work in an hour interview? It's impossible. But others have made that decision knowing you for 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. So I'll just focus on getting that information and that evidence. And that was really the key. So when I said, I will send you 3 candidates, hiring managers often, I don't like that person. And I say, why? Well, he doesn't have good team skills. They say, well, how could that possibly be? Because he was assigned to this team, and this team, and those people on that team asked him to be on this team. And then hiring managers would look at that and they say, oh, didn't even ask that question. So I always could out evidence a hiring manager as opposed to out yell them, which that doesn't work. I have tried, but it doesn't work. Digging into the candidate's major team and individual accomplishments, looking at over time. I mean, it's really the same question, but asking it multiple times over different periods and phases. And you really get some great insight with the candidate if you decide to listen.
Right. That is the key, listening. And also being prepared for the interview. We find that so many hiring managers are doing way too much. They're doing so much with so little that they ask these superficial questions and don't probe. So what is your recommendation on probing for the real answer?
Let me give you another story, which I think hopefully it'll answer your question, but we'll see. So remember I said I was giving talks to different business groups about how to interview. And it was a 2-hour overview of performance-based hiring. I had to define the job and had to ask questions. So that was the 2 hours. And generally these were mid-sized presidents, company presidents, $10 million to $100 million size companies, which was our market. So I remember getting a call, and this was when I was a full-time recruiter, and I'm going to say it was 1995 to 2000 in that time frame. And the president calls and he says, Lou, what are those 2 questions you told me to ask during the interview? And I'm a recruiter. I said, well, what's the position? He said, I don't have to tell you. Just tell me the 2 questions. And he was really getting aggravated. Give me the 2 questions. I said, well, tell me the position so I can at least modify. So he said, the VP operations. And that was and I knew we had a manufacturing facility of some type. I said, well, let me come out there and I'll understand the job. And then I'll show you how I can ask the questions and figure out if the person can do that work. He said, I don't have time. Just tell me the 2 questions. He was really getting aggravated. Tell me the 2 questions. And I realized, geez, I said, why is this guy so aggravated? And I was trying to say, I'll come up this afternoon. Let's spend an hour together right now on the phone. No, tell me the questions. I mean, he was like in your face. I said, why are you so hungry for these 2 questions? He said, because the candidate's in the hallway.
Oh, jeepers. Yeah.
I said, oh, well, now I understand. I said, okay, do this. Kind of walk me through your factory visually and tell me what you see as problems. I said, give me 5 minutes. And he said, I'm making products made out of lumber and wood and different kinds of stuff. And I said, okay, what are some problems you got? He said, I got some lumber, that's too much lumber over here. I got too much scrap. We don't have a good supply chain. I said, okay, that's enough. I don't need to know anymore. But I want you to write down 5 or 6 problems you have in your factory. I want you to go out. Once you see the candidate, do not go in your office under any circumstances. Go out in the factory, stop at one of you, and kind of prioritize, if you can, some of your big problems. Point out the problem and ask 2 questions. Here's question 1. Probably not the right order, but do it this way because it'll make sense given the time. I said, first ask the person, describe the problem, and ask the candidate if he were to get the job, how he would fix it. That's the problem-solving question, different than the one I told you before about the accomplishment. Then spend 5 or 10 minutes to see the person's thinking skills, see if he even has an idea of the problem itself. Then ask him, what have you done that's most comparable? Which is the most significant accomplishment question, but tailored for that. Hey, we got a real problem with supply chain. If you would, here's why, yada, yada, yada. How would you fix it? And get into a conversation, and then ask them, what have you done that's related to that to show you could fix it? Right. I said, then call me when you're done. It should take you an hour and a half, 2 hours to go through the factory. Maybe about that. She said, great, thank you. Calls me about 3 hours later. He said, Lou, great 2 questions. And actually, I defined the job with him because they said walk around the factory. He then calls me and said, Lou, the guy really was a good consultant. He really understood how he would solve the problem, but he had never solved anything similar. So he sounded like a corporate staff guy, but not a hands-on operational VP. And that's what I need. Can you come out in the next day or so? I'll give you the search assignment, which he gave us. And 3 weeks later, I got a person who could do all that stuff. So I don't know if that's, or your question was, what was your question? I don't remember. I thought the story was good, but I'm not sure it was related. So
the story was really good. It was based on, the most important question, and that so many hiring managers don't prepare for the interview.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they have so few candidates that they're scared to death to probe. They just want somebody with a pulse to hire.
Well, you're actually right. Yeah, I think I've seen that happen. And I guess because I'm a recruiter, I can't let that happen. But I know that there's this tendency. I don't want to really know the truth. I just want to hope.
Right.
So
hope is not a strategy.
Yeah. I'd rather make a yes decision. And I've had people check references and the references were bad. They didn't want to hear it, which is similar. I mean, it's why don't you want to hear it? This is critical. But they just want to get the job filled and move on to another problem, even if they know there's going to be a problem. So it is this short-term thinking that dominates the selection process, which is unfortunate, but it definitely exists.
Yes, and with the inventory issue we have currently, and that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, it's creating more pressure on hiring managers to make decisions without all the information, and spending that time to walk through the facility and have someone show you what they know versus tell you what they know. It's like when we were in kindergarten, remember that show and tell? Show and tell. Showing is much more powerful than telling.
Yes. I'll say this. Do I remember kindergarten? I got to tell you, no, I don't. But I do know it was PS 36 in the Bronx. That's about the best I can do.
That's awesome. So what do you in the selection process, in the hiring process, do you advocate the use of assessments? And if you do, what assessments do you recommend? Okay,
so let me kind of give you my predictive index discussion and other stories I have with presidents of I 100% of the time give an assessment test, but only to the final candidates. But if you're a tester and a company who's selling tests, you want to give it to all candidates. Giving it to 100 candidates is a lot better than giving it to 3. You make no money only giving it to 3, but you make a lot of money giving it to 100. So there's again a point of view issue. And I had one client who just invested in the predictive index personality assessment, and I said, "You're wasting your money." He said, "No, I'm going to give it." And he re-argued. He was a head of a venture capital group, $1 billion VC, not huge but big. And I said, "You're making a mistake." He then came around and discovered that some of the people he had hired weren't as good. And he said, "Look," so he called me just about 6 months ago. He said, "Why are you so against it?" I said, "I'm not against it. I just think you have to be careful when you do it." I said, "If you are going after a top performer," and he was only hiring directors and above, so mid-management and executive management. I said, "The best people aren't going to take the test ahead of time, even if it's predictive." I said, "But it's not predictive, it's confirming." I said, "If they can do the work, I guarantee they'll pass the test." Now, I said, part of the predictive index, which has an IQ test, that's very predictive, but if a good candidate isn't going to take the test ahead of time, you'll lose candidates. So the bigger picture is you lose good people in the desire to give the test. So no, you got to put it as even though it is effective at the end, let's say IQ component of the test is predictive, somewhat predictive. The personality test is confirming, but not perfectly confirming, but it's okay. But only give it at the end and then make the judgment and say, "I think this candidate is pretty good. Their test results are a little bit off. So use that as a secondary series of questions." So it has value when used appropriately, but in my mind, when used for screening purposes, you've got a transactional weed out the weak process when I'm focusing on attracting the best process. And even though I might give it, I have to give it when, "Hey, candidate, I really like your background. One last step. You got to go through this because it's legally, everybody's got to do it." And they'll do it, but they'll do it because it's not to get in the game, it's to get the offer. So that's the difference. It does have value. And I've talked to PhDs, I've talked to the research scientists at many of these. And I think they all 100% agree with me in terms of the impact and the value. But when they look at it from a business standpoint, they want to sell more tests. So that's their goal. And that's a point of view issue, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a point of view, and it's a fiscal motivator for them to sell more assessments. But I totally agree with you. It's when you introduce the assessment, and many people don't introduce the assessment too soon because they don't have confidence in their ability to hire or select because they haven't trained their people on how to do so. So they want to rely on the assessment versus the interview skills of their hiring managers or their recruiters. It's kind of an in-out type of thing versus when we get to that stage, an assessment tool can tell you more about the candidate you're about ready to bring into your organization and help you set them up for success.
I agree with that.
Great. You also wrote recently about ChatGPT and how it's going to help people find jobs and compare offers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that is a hot topic right now.
Well, let me suggest that I'm going to take it first from the point of view of the company. I think I've talked about this with my team and some of my clients. Why are you so reluctant, or HR leaders, why are you so reluctant to prepare a performance-based job description, defining the work as a series of KPOs rather than a list of skills? And they say hiring managers don't want to do it. So our whole focus is you have to define the work as a series of key performance objectives, KPOs, that define the work, define the task, define the result, define the time frame. It's pretty complicated. Build a team of marketing analysts to be able to launch a new product over the next 6 months. That's a good KPO rather than 5 years of experience and an MBA from a prestigious school. It's the work, what they need to do, not what they need to have to do it. Given that, ChatGPT, you can kind of go into ChatGPT and says, what are the skills and duties of a mid-level software developer, and what are some key performance objectives? It will give you that whole list to you. That used to be a heartburn for me to do. But you can just go to ChatGPT and it'll tell you. And then you got to go to the hiring manager and kind of optimize it and prioritize it and get it right. But you're in the game right there. On the other hand, so let's just say that's one step. It also can help you find candidates, get referrals, can ask interview questions, which are very similar. So it really is a game changer. You can now go to the candidate and said, if I was a candidate comparing two offers, what are the factors I should consider other than money? And it'll tell you exactly that little graphic that you kind of saw. Should I go or should I leave? It tells you right there. These are the factors that drive on the job success. But you could have done that if you look at the Gallup Q12, which says here's what drives on the job success. It's the same thing. It's just that, but candidates are in this, so it gives you all of the software and the knowledge to get in the game of hiring great people quickly, ChatGPT. But it still doesn't change the human nature of point of view. If I'm a candidate and want a new job, I'm going to think about the money. If I'm a hiring manager, I still have this pressure to fill this job quickly. But on the other hand, it allows you to do, in my mind, create a win-win hiring opportunity more quickly than it was in the past. So to me, but I think it does a lot of things, better job postings, better everything, but it really is phenomenal. And then I also saw a sample of Lambda, which is Google's artificial intelligence engine, which is also amazing. I mean, it's almost like you're dealing with the human. I mean, it really is amazing.
And it's going to change recruiting for both recruiters and the recruiting industry and for companies and their hiring managers. Help them with their hiring process. No question in my mind. It
absolutely will. It'll change it everything. Again, are you going to use it? But let me make the caveat. Once everybody uses it, it'll level the playing field will be leveled very, very quickly. I mean, it's not going to be, okay, I'm in a game, I'm done. So I think from that standpoint, it means early adopters will have a better advantage more quickly, but it's not, once everybody has it, it's, okay, how do you apply this stuff and how do you leverage it for your own thing? It's not going to replace recruiters. It is going to change the role that recruiters play.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. Have to go back to your formula for win-win hiring success. How do you really understand people's motivation? Because it's 2 times in your formula. That's so important. And you can't give people motivation. So how do hiring managers dig into the motivation piece since it's such an important component of your formula, sir?
What I do is during that most significant accomplishment question, I ask candidates hey, tell me about your biggest accomplishment in that job. This is peeling the onion. When did you go the extra mile? What work did you like the most? Give me some examples of where you took the initiative. So for every one of those questions, I'm asking about where did you excel? What were the circumstances that you liked this job? So I'm trying to figure out in each accomplishment what the circumstances were that drove success. And I say, tell me about your biggest failure. What was the difference between that job and this job? So I'm understanding the context of the job. Is it the job itself, the people, the resources, whatever it is? But I'm asking that question. If I'm going to actually hire a candidate for a job, the company has interviewed this person, 8 to 10 hours for 3 or 4 or 5 different people. If they all ask the same question and then we debrief, I said, hey, where did you see this person excel? What were the circumstances? Where did this person underperform? What were the circumstances? Can they be attributed to some of those fit factors? So I'm always asking people where they went the extra mile, where they excelled, and where they didn't, and trying to understand, okay, what's different about this situation that's different from before or after? So I'm really kind of getting a sense that, hey, this person's pretty cool, pretty interesting, and pretty impactful here. So that's how I do it. I just look for evidence of where the person went the extra mile and see if there's a pattern there. And you do that 3 or 4 different jobs, different types of accomplishments, you start seeing this pattern of why the person excelled.
Excellent. So that evidence of motivation is what the hiring manager needs to dig into. Yep. And I think evidence of the ability, evidence of the fit, evidence of driving results versus just taking it at, what they tell you, have them show you. Back to the show and tell.
No, I don't believe it. I'd say I'm a super cynic. I don't trust anybody.
That's so great.
Even if I like you, I don't trust you. And if I don't like you, I don't trust you. Again, it's my life's on the line. I have to give you if you don't make it, I got to give the money back or do it over. And I don't want to do it over. I don't do either of those things. So I really am convinced.
Well, that's called integrity, Lou. And you have it in spades.
It's talk cheap.
I'm going to call it integrity. You can call it cheat.
Okay.
Not a problem. But hey, I've been with Lou Adler and it's been wonderful. Lou, how do people find you? How do they get a copy of your book? Tell us how we can get in touch with you.
Well, I think the easiest way, and I appreciate you asking that, the easiest way is to join the book club. Hirewithyourhead.com. You'll see the ability to do the book there. We're going to talk about these issues. We have another meeting. We usually have a meeting at the end of every month, so we'll have another one coming up in a few weeks. Join the book club, sign up, hirewithyourhead.com, and you'll be able to do it. And we're going to be talking about ChatGPT. We're going to be talking about from the candidate perspective of, the perspective is 2/3 or 3/4 from the hiring manager in the company. But we also say, hey, if you're a candidate, here's how to handle those same situations. So it's important for both people. But I would say it's largely hey, how do you want to hire people? How do you make career decisions? How do you negotiate offers? How do you get referrals? How do you use ChatGPT to improve all of those areas? So that's really the focus of what we're doing. And
That's excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Kathleen, and I hope to chat with you again soon.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap on another episode of Dare to Care in the Workplace. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you can automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left me a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. Until we meet again.
This has been Dare to Care in the Workplace. To connect with Kathleen, go to KathleenQuinnBotaw.com. Kathleen's book, Dare to Care, is available wherever books are sold. Dare to Care in the Workplace is a production of Forbes Books.